Hi guys, it's Roy from Bellados 3D here with another video, and in today's video I will be modelling a school desk of the type that you might recognise if you ever went to school in the 70s and 80s in the UK. The type with the flip up lid and a little gully across the back for your pens and pencils, and of course the obligatory 80s graffiti icon with the big nose hanging over the wall. Oh God, I can't remember what it's called. If anybody remembers what it's called, put it in the comments. Anyway, in this video I'll be modelling, and in the next video I will be painting in Substance Painter and then putting it into Unity. So let's get on with the modelling. Right, let's get started. Okay, as you can see, default scene, I haven't added anything to it except for the screencast keys, which you can see right there at the bottom right hand corner of the screen, and that will show you what keys and buttons I'm pressing as I'm modelling, so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to start with the default cube. So let's go into front orthographic mode with the numpad 1 key and zoom in so we can see it a little bit. Now I want to bring this origin point down to the bottom. There's a couple of ways of doing this, but the easiest way from the start is to go tab to go into edit mode, press A to select everything, G to grab, and then press Z to restrict it to the Z axis, and then just move it up 1 meter by pressing the 1 and enter, and that brings the origin down to the bottom there. Now, the first things first, what I want to do is I want to just block out the general shape and size for the desk. So I'm going to go into the end panel and making sure the model is selected. I'm going to click on the Z axis, and I don't know about anywhere else, but in the UK, desks and tables are usually about 75 centimeters tall. So we will put in there 0.75, and these types of desk, they are slightly wider than they are deep, so I'm going to change the X to 0.6 and the Y to 0.5, and that gives us about the right shape and size for our desk. Now, as you can see, the scale is not uniform. It's got 0.3, 0.25, 0.375. If I was to leave this like that now, if I was to go into edit mode and in face mode select one of the faces and press I, you'll notice that these sides are slightly wider than these sides, and this is because the scale is not uniform. So we need to make sure that that scale is uniform by making sure the object is selected, pressing Ctrl A and selecting scale, and as you can see it's now 111. So now when I go into edit mode and press I to inset, all 4 sides are the same width. Okay, so what I want to do is in face select the bottom face on this box and press 1 to go into front orthographic, press G to grab, Z to restrict it to the Z axis, and just bring it up, and I think that will be about the right size. And that's the main part of our desk. So next I think I will go into edge mode and select each of these pieces here. I'm going into edge mode by pressing 2 on the keyboard or clicking this button here. Now I just want to bevel off these edges a little bit, so press Ctrl and B and just bring it out to about, I'd say about there, should do it. And the reason I'm doing that is because the corners will be inside the legs, and what I want to do is I want to break down the geometry so that I have 1, 2, 3 and 4 panels rather than a whole ring of panels. So let's then go back into face mode, select the top and the bottom. I'm just going to inset them just a little bit like so. Now I'm going to press Shift D and I'm going to duplicate those 2 pieces and I'm going to hide them because I'm going to use them for the bottom of the desk. But what I do now is I'm going to select these 2 faces again, and if I press Ctrl E and I can press Bridge Edge Loops, that now deletes those 2 faces and bridges between these 2 sets of edges, giving us a nice thick panel all the way around. But what I want to do is I want to press Alt and select on any of the horizontal lines in these corner pieces, like so, and Alt Shift and click to repeat. I'm just going to delete them. Delete faces, and that gives me 4 little panels, no end caps, and these ends will be hidden inside the legs, and this reduces the amount of extra hidden pieces by a considerable amount. It also means it's areas that don't need to be textured, so there's less space used on the UV map. So let's bring back our two faces that we hid by Alt and H, and they're already selected. Front orthographic with 1 on the numpad, and press Shift Z to go into wireframe mode. And with them both selected, press S and Z, and we'll bring that right in like so to about the depth we need. There we go. And we're just going to bring that down by GZ just above the bottom of the panels, just like so. And if I press Shift and Z now to bring it back into wireframe mode, you can see we have the rough shape of the actual desk itself. So what I think we need to do now is start working on the legs. So if we go back into edit mode, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to edge select mode with 2, or clicking the button up here. I'm going to press Alt and select all of the edges on that piece, and Shift and Alt and select all the pieces on that edge. And then I'm going to press Shift and S and choose cursor to selected, and that brings my little 3D cursor right into the middle of that. So I can now go back out into object mode, press Shift A and create a cube, and you notice that the cube, you can't see it very well, but it's actually centered on the 3D cursor there. So let's go into edit mode. I'm going to scale that right down. Don't need it that big at all. And if I go into top orthographic with 7 on the numpad, I can then scale it down and size it up to about the right size. And that should be about the right size there. Yep. And just bring it into front orthographic view and press S and Z just to bring it up. I want to bring it up so it's just over the top, just like so. Just a tiny bit over the top, just so it's not Z clashing with the top of the panels here. And select the bottom face with 3 on the keyboard. Select the bottom face, front orthographic mode. I want to extrude that and bring it right down to this red line about here. Now I think that needs to be a little bit thicker actually, so I'm going to select all by pressing A, and I'm going to press S and Shift Z to exclude the Z axis, so it's only going on the X and the Y axis, and I just want to bring that out just a touch about that. Should do it. Yeah, I think that'll be about right there. Okay, so now I want to add one more edge loop just here, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a little bit more of a defined shape. Everything looks slightly curved in real life. There's no real sharp straight lines unless it's been manufactured specifically to them specifications, and especially wooden items, you never get perfectly straight items. So let's go back into face select the bottom. I'm just going to scale it in slightly, just a tiny bit, and again 2 to go into edge mode. I'm going to alt click on this loop here. I'm going to scale it in just a slight amount, a little bit less than before, so it gives it a little bit of a bulge, and as you can see, it makes a huge difference. It's only a tiny little change, but it makes a huge difference. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to alt and left click this loop here, so it selects all of these back faces, and I'm going to press Control and B. I'm going to bring that out so it's just not quite touching the edges there, and then scale up 1, 2 on there, and that gives it a nice little curve around the back. Obviously it's not shaded smooth, so let's go into tab to object mode, select it and right click shade smooth. Now that looks great, but you've got these shading issues here, and that will be easily fixed by going to your object data tab, selecting normals and then clicking auto smooth, and there you go. As you see, it gives it a nice smooth curve, but the edges are nice and sharp. Right, and finally back into edit mode, I want to also click on this piece here and this piece here and this piece here, and I'm going to bevel these as well, but I'm going to press Control B, bring it out. I'm just going to bring it down to so there's only one extra loop in there, so it's just a smaller bevel, and that gives it a nice bit of a curve on the edge there, gives it a bit more of a defined shape there. Now we want 4 legs. Now instead of sitting here for ages and making 4 legs, what I want to do is I want to mirror, obviously the origin point's in the middle of this piece at the moment, so if I mirrored now it would just mirror around that origin point and you wouldn't see it. But you can mirror it around another object with a more central origin point. So if I go to, with the leg selected, go to the modifier properties, select add modifier and mirror, and as you can see it just mirrors around itself there. If I go to the mirror object and click on this little pipette and then click on the cube, as you can see it now mirrors across the x-axis perfectly. And then I can simply select Y on there. I now have 4 legs on my desk, and there we have the main bulk of the desk almost done. I'm just going to go back into the this piece here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these 4 pieces like so with the L key, and what the L key does is that selects linked objects, so everything that is physically connected to that face that I hovered over will be selected. And I'm going to press Control B, and the same as the sharp edges on the legs, just a tight little bevel like so, just to give it a bit more defined shape and a bit more natural shape rather than a really sharp edge. Okay, so let's get the lid made. And for that, I think I'm going to need a plane. But first things first, I'm going to reset this 3D cursor back to the world origin point down there on the grid. And to do that, I just press Shift and S and then select cursor to world origin, and it brings it right there. So press Shift and A, mesh and plane, and go into top orthographic with 7 on the numpad, and press Shift Z to go into wireframe so I can see it better. And we just want to bring that down with the S button, the scale button, and I just want to scale that in so it's just overlapping the legs just by a touch. S and Y, bring that in just so that it's just overlapping. And again, as usual, Shift and A, sorry, Control and A, scale to reset the scale to 1 to 1. And let's come out of wireframe with Shift Z. And we have the basic size of our lid. Now what I want to do is I want to bring that with G and Z all the way up to the top, and I want to snap it to the top of the legs so that it's flush, but it's not too flush that it's clashing. So what I need to do is use the snapping tool, and I'm not going to turn it on, but I'm going to use the options there to select face. And then what I can do now is if I hold my mouse over this face just here and press G and then Z to restrict it to the Z axis, and then press Control, you notice it snaps right onto the top there. And there we have it. So let's go into edit mode now. I'm going to divide this up into 2 pieces because what we want is a small back piece with a little a gully for pens and pencils and such, and then the actual lid itself. So I'm going to press Control and R, and I'm going to move that back, and I'd say about that far should be far enough, about there. Now if I go into face mode with 3 and select that back face and press Y, what that does is it separates that piece from the front piece without breaking it out of the mesh. So I've actually got 2 pieces there, which is what I need. Now if I select everything, I can then go into front orthographic mode, press E, and just bring it up to about the depth of a desk lid. I'd say about there, should be about fine. And that gives us our 2 separate box pieces for the lid of the desk. Right, and looking at it, I think this back piece is actually a little bit too wide. So if I go into right orthographic mode and then press Shift and Z to go into wireframe, I can then drag select those two faces there and G, Y, and bring that back. I think that's about there, should do it. Let's come back out of wireframe with Shift C, and I'm going to clear my selection. I'm going to select this piece and I'm going to break it out so that it's a separate object with P, and choosing selection. Go back into object mode, make sure that this back piece is selected. I can press backslash on the numpad and that will isolate that view so I can only see that object to make it easier to work on. And in edit mode, let's have a look. So what I need to do is I need to press Control R and create an edge loop. But what I'm going to do now is scroll up one to have two edge loops there, and press left click twice. And I just want to press S and Y to scale them out a little bit wider like so. And I want to add another edge loop in the center. Now with this edge loop, if I click the top one and then go into right orthographic view, obviously it's selected but you can't see it. Now if I press G and Z, I can bring that down to about halfway, I'd say, or just over halfway like so. And that gives us our little gully. Obviously a little bit too sharp down there like that. So now if I press Alt and click to select the whole edge loop, as you can see the whole edge loop's been selected, and then press Control and B, I can then slide that out and then scroll up, and as you can see it curves it nicely. And I want a few cuts in that, and I want to try and get each of the segments along there about the same sort of width, and I think that's about right. So each of the faces here is about the same sort of width. And let's clear that selection and go back out, and as you can see we have our gully there, but it's not very smooth. So if we right click and press shade smooth, that goes all glitchy. So we need to go to our normals in our object data settings tab and click auto smooth, and that smooths that out nicely. It gives it a nice sharp edge along there, and it gives it a nice smooth curve around there. I think that looks quite nice. So let's press the backslash on our numpad again to bring everything back. And as you can see, it's all coming together and it looking really nice. And we're almost finished with this now. We just need a few more pieces. First things first, let's go into the lid, select everything and Control B. And let's scroll all the way back down and then back up one. And we'll bring it out about this far, I'd say. And that will give us a nice bevel on the edge. Again, it's flat shaved, so we need to smooth shave it. Right click, shade smooth, and then auto smooth, and that just gives it a bit more natural look, less manufactured. Okay, and then the same with the back piece. We want to do that. We don't want to spoil any of this piece here. So let's select all of these pieces like so, and try and get all the way around like so. I'm going to need to get under there, so let's, yeah, there we go. And we just do a Control B, the same as the desk, just like that. And that should be the bulk of the desk finished. We just need to add some detail, and the detail for this is going to be our hinge. And we're going to put it with these desks. They don't have a hinge across here, they have a bar that goes across here, and it rotates up on the bar. So let's see, I'm going to go into this piece. I'm going to select with 2 and select that edge there and press Shift S, cursor to selected, and come back out into object mode, press Shift A, mesh, and I'm going to create a cube. and it's a bit huge, so I'm going to scale it right down and bring it right down, all the way down to about there. I think that'll be about right. And what I want to do, it's not going to be on the inside, it's going to be on the outside. So I need to bring it out on the x-axis with G and X. And then again, remember the snapping method, G, X and Control to snap. And now if I go to face mode, I can select this outer face. Now, as you can see, it's rotating a bit funnily. It does that every now and then. If I press the period key on the numpad, that will focus right in on that piece, and then it will rotate around that piece. You press G and X, and I only want it so far. I'd say about that far. And select everything. Go into right orthographic mode with 3 on the keypad, and S and Y, and I'm going to bring that to about there. And then again, come in, I'm going to select this end piece, back into right orthographic, and these hinges are usually quite long, so G and Y, and bring that down to about there. And that should be about right, just about there. Now, let's see. I think I want to put an edge loop about there, and then back into face mode, S and Z to bring that down, because they're usually not perfectly straight. S and Z, bring it back up a bit. And I think that would do about right. And I want to put 3 edge loops in there, because what I want to do is S and Y, bring that out, not so far. And then if I just select that edge loop there, S and Y, and bring that out a little bit, and that just rounds it off and gives it a little bit of shape. Obviously we need to add, shade smooth that and auto smooth, and that looks a lot better. And I think one more thing I'm going to do on there, I'm going to press 3 to go into face mode. I'm going to select these edges like this. I'm going to extrude them out slightly, just bring them out, and I'm going to switch to my transform pivot point to individual origins, so that now instead of scaling on the center point of the 2 objects, they're actually scaling individually on each selection. In the center of each selection, I'm going to S and Z and scale that down smaller like so, just to give it a bit of a shape there like that. And I think that looks about right there. Now I need to mirror this on the other side, and remember what we did before. We went to the modifier tab, we added the modifier, and we did the mirror on the x-axis, and obviously because the origin point's in the object, it's mirroring on itself, we want it to mirror on an object with the origin point in the center. So we click on the little pipette and click on the desk, and that will mirror to the other side like so. And there we have our model. Now all we need to do is unwrap it, ready for painting. So let's go to our UV editing tab, and as you can see, it now brings up the model and our UV editing area. So let's go through each of the objects one by one, and what we will do is we will unwrap each part of the object individually, and then I'll use average island scaling and packing islands to pack it nice and neat as one on the texture sheet. So let's select our lid and press the backslash on the numpad to isolate it from the view. And this should be quite simple. Let's go to edge select with 2, and we will select, alt select this edge here and this edge here. And again, shift select this edge this edge, and this edge. Control E and mark seam. And now that should, theoretically, if I press U and U, and that will lay it out on the UV map there according to my scenes, and that looks about right. I think that's pretty good. So let's come back out there, backslash again, and the next piece is going to be the main part. Let's backslash to isolate the view, and we will go through, and this is going to be quite simple because all I'm going to need is a simple seam, and I'm going to put it on the bottom because it's going to be the least viewed. Let's clear everything. We're still in edge mode, and we're just going to select the bottom edge on all of these pieces. We don't need any other seams because if we select it all now and press U and unwrap, it unwraps it all perfectly fine. So let's go back out and backslash again to come back. Let's do the leg. With the mirrored objects, I'm just going to unwrap once and then apply the modifiers, because then all of the legs will have the same unwrap, and I can then spread them out on the texture sheet later. So let's isolate the view on that one, and let's see where's best to do the cuts on this. I think if I go into 3 and I select the two faces at the top and the bottom, press Control E and mark seam. Now you probably look at this and think, oh, there's a nasty end gone, but to be honest, most engines, when you put them into the engines, they triangulate things anyway, so it really doesn't matter all that much on a nice flat face. It's when the face isn't so flat, you get warping, that you will have issues, but with a flat face like this, I don't think we will have any issues. And I'm going to select, I think, in edge mode, this line here, Control E and mark seam, and that should give us a nice run wrap, and I'd say that was quite nice. But what I want to do on this one is I want to select in edge mode this edge here and SY0 to straighten it up, SY0 on this edge as well, and then on this edge here SX0 and SX0, and then we're going to face mode with 3, select this face, and then press L to select that whole area. If I right click now, I can press follow active quads, and that straightens up that UV mesh there for us, which will make it a bit better for texturing later on. So let's press Control Space to come out of that mode, and that's that done. Backslash again. What have we got left to look at? This back piece, which is going to be a little bit more awkward to do. So let's isolate that and let's see what we can do on that. And I think we're going to have each of the end pieces as a separate piece and then one long piece around. So let's alt click that selection and alt click that selection there, Control E, mark seams, which then means a piece that's not going to be seen as much. I think that one there, that edge there should be right. Control E, mark seam, select A and U and unwrap, and there we have it, perfect. I think that's come out quite well. It's a little bit wobbly on this, but it's an end piece, so it shouldn't be that much of an issue. I think that would be fine. What I am going to do is LL. I want the wood grain to be running about the same, in the same direction. So let's see, that is the end. I'll need to R90 minus. This is so that when I paint it, I can get the wood grain running in the right direction on there. Okay, so let's come out of that and unisolate it. And I think the only piece that's left to do is this hinge just here. So let's isolate that and take a look at that. And this is going to be a little bit trickier because it's a bit of a funny shape. But I think we can... Let's see. Yes, I think if we go into edge mode, we select this edge, and select all the way around here. Doesn't matter quite so much as the rest, to be honest, because it's going to be a metal texture, and with metal textures there's not a lot of actual detail on small pieces like this. There's not a lot of actual detail, and I've just noticed a small mistake that I've made. I'm going to rectify that. I'm going to go into vertex mode. I'm going to select these two and press G and Y and bring that back. Yep, that should be about far enough. Let's check the other end. Yep, I've done the same there. Press G and select that, and press G and Y to bring that back. Just to give it a bit more of a shape there. There we go. Yeah, that looks a bit better. Right, I'm back to marking the seams. And I'm going to focus in on this piece here. In edge select, I'm going to select this back edge, this edge, this edge, and then all the way around like so. And I'm going to do exactly the same on the back end of this. So we select this edge, and all the way around. Control E and mark seam. Notice I haven't beveled this piece. It's a small piece. It's not going to need a bevel on it. It should be fine as a sharp. I'm going to select this edge along here. Mark seam. Although I am going to go back out. I'm going to right click and shade smooth just to make sure. And go into normals and make sure auto smooth is on. Because that helps the shading when you're texturing it. And I think that should now unwrap pretty well. I think that unwraps quite well. That's quite good. So let's come back out of isolation mode, and now with them all selected, let's go into edit mode, and you notice that they're all overlapping. That's not a problem, but first things first, what I need to do is the pieces that have modifiers, I need to apply the modifiers, and I need to join the pieces together that should be joined together. So first things first, the legs, I'm going to go to the modifier tab, and I'm going to hover over the modifier and press Control A, and that now applies that modifier. And if I shift click the main part of the desk and press Control J, that will now join them two pieces together. Let's click on this back piece. I want that joined to there, like so. Press Control J to join that. And let's have a look. That shading looks a little bit off. Make sure it's auto smooth. Make sure auto smooth's on. There we go. For some reason the joining cancelled the auto smooth, so now that looks a lot better. Now we have the lid. And I don't think I've got any modifiers on that. And the hinge, and I want the lid and the hinge to be connected. So let's click on the hinge and apply that modifier, and then shift click on the lid and press Control J. Now I'm going to rename this desk lid, and again this piece I'm going to rename to desk. So we now have two pieces, and we were going to select both pieces together, go into edit mode, select everything, and as you see it's all a bit of a mess on top of each other, and it's all at slightly different scales because each piece was done separately. So if we now select everything with the A key, we can go up to UV and go down to average island scale, and that brings every island to the right scale, so that when you put a texture on, the texture will be the same scale. The grain on the texture or the detail on the texture will be the same size for every piece. Okay, and now if I press UV and pack islands. Now I want to go down to this little option here. I'm going to change the rotate and tick off the rotate, because there was a couple of pieces that I rotated to be in the right size. And if I press Control Space, that will isolate this window so I can see it a bit better. And as you can see, it's laid all the pieces out nice and neatly on here. But what I want to do is I want to take a look. I'm just going to give them a bit more margin so I can see what I've got. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to put all of the pieces that are wood together, all in the same rotation, so that I don't have to keep rotating my wood around in Substance Painter later. So I think I'm going to have it so the grain is all going this way vertically. So let's take a look. R90, and that rotates them just like in normal. We just move that out of the way for now, and I think pretty much most of it's all the right way round. I'm just gonna yeah, that one, 90, move it that way. I think that's everything. What are these pieces here? Oh, right, it's the end pieces on the metal, and I might actually scale them up a little bit, the hinges, so I can get a bit more detail on that. If it's a completely different material to the rest of it, having them on slightly different scales doesn't always matter, especially if it's like metal, because the detail is a lot less sharp than, for example, a wood grain. So I'm going to scale these up to twice the size of what they normally are, and let's select everything and select everything in there, and we're going to go back to the UV and pack islands, isolate the view again, and then we can adjust the packing just a tad, just to give it a bit better packing. About there should do for now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this, and I'm going to just shift it around a little bit so I can fit it better onto the scale. And what I'll do is I will speed up this part. And there we have our nice neat UV map, and our model is now ready to be exported for painting in Substance Painter, which will be our next video. So if you've enjoyed this video and if you've learnt something from it, please hit that like button and let your friends know all about it. And if you want to see more content like this, just click that subscribe button, and don't forget to click the notification bell if you want to be notified every time I upload a video. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope to see you in the next one.